Yes, on the camera. Yes, the camera takes place. I think that's what it is. Okay. We're all streaming. Yep. What's the view look like? Out of curiosity? Just so I have an idea. All right. Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Once again, my name is Tom McDade. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business here at the North Merrick School District. We have a lot of people here today. So the first thing I'd like to do, since it's the first time we're actually doing the Budget Committee in person for the first time in a long time, I just want to send the microphone around. Just everyone introduce yourself, just so we have an idea who everybody is. Once again, my name is Tom McDade, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Gadis, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Personnel.
I am Ed Murphy, the Assistant to the Superintendent for People Personnel Services and Special Education.
Howard Merrims, Principal of Fayette.
Hi, Laura DeLuca, Principal of Old Mill Road.
Hi, my name is Ting Chan. I'm a parent. My son goes to Camp Avenue second grade.
Hi, my name is Nicole Mincher. I'm a parent as well. My son is in first grade at camp, and it's my first year on the committee.
Hi, my name's Erin Teta. I'm a parent of two boys over at OMR.
Hi, everybody. Mary Keene. I'm here on the board, but I'm here as a parent. I'm just happen to also be on the board. So, and I apologize for leaving early. I have to take my daughter somewhere in a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Chris Midkish. I had a son that went to Camp Avenue up through MAMS and now is a freshman at Calhoun, and I'm involved in the PTA in the community.
Hi, I'm Joanne Long. I'm the district clerk, and I have to remind everyone to speak into the microphone when they're speaking so that we can get a good recording.
Good evening, Cynthia Seniak, Superintendent of Schools. I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for your service, for helping us during our budget season.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Carter. I'm the Director of School Facilities and Operations.
Hey, I'm Ed Corona, and I'm Vice President of the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you for everybody for coming once again. So I want to also thank everyone at home that's watching this right now, because we are live streaming on the website right now. So thank you if you're tuning in right now or watching later. So the first thing, this is our first budget meeting in person, like I said, in person for a long time. So the first thing we'd kind of like to do is just have a quick overview of exactly what the process entails in regard to the budget. So you can see up here, I have a presentation that you can also see at home. The presentation will also be online tomorrow morning. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the whole budget process, as well as we're going to touch on revenue real quick. Revenue is going to be quick tonight, just for the simple fact that we're not getting the state aid numbers till tomorrow. The governor's finally give them out, and that has a trickle-down effect in regard to a lot that we do here at North Merrick. So what happens in the process? Well, the first thing is that each year the Board of Education and the administration review all the new rules, regulations, and mandates that are necessary for the school. We go through the budget process, which is basically in November, all the administrators receive budget sheets in regard to all their codes. They submit to me their wish list in regard to what's needed to basically run the school each year. And what winds up happening is, after that's submitted, we go through, we have meetings through the month of December and January to see where we're at for the budget, what we need to do, what we're able to do. So the draft needs of the budget are reflected of the priorities of the district. So what happens is it's an estimate. You know, we don't know what's going to happen next year at this time. I remember last year when we were sitting here going through the whole budget process that we didn't know that gas was going to go through the roof. We had started the first budget process, and I swear it was 2 months later, gas went up to close to $5 a gallon. So we don't know what that is. So everything that we're doing is an estimate. So what happens is we develop the needs of the district. We go through line by line of the budgets. And then we have the budget process here where we have meetings in regard to explaining what's in the budget, in regard to what's also the revenue. And we listen to suggestions through the administrators, the staff, as well as the community. So like I said before, the draft budget addresses the needs of the district so we can afford the children the best delivery of curriculum and instruction in the most fiscally responsible manner. And we've been very good with that over the past few years. So what are the main impacts of the budget? What are the driving forces of the budget? Well, we have the instructional program. Enrollment's always a big one because it depends on how many students are coming in each year, depends on how many sections of in each school we're going to have. So the higher the enrollment, the more sections we're going to need. The lower the enrollment, obviously, the less sections we're going to need. We have to look at the buildings and grounds each year. Just think about the one thing we talk about every year. What do we mean by the buildings and grounds? It's what we're standing in here, sitting in here right now. It's like your home. Okay, each year you're home, you go through certain issues and problems that you have to deal with. School district has the same problems here in regard to whether it's the roofs, the heating, the electricity, the windows. We have the same issues that you have at home that we have to account for and make sure that the budget reflects that each year. We also have new and local state and local mandates that are required from the state, which we'll discuss later on through the presentation in regard to what that really is. But a lot of it's just in regard to auditing requirements, mandates that are required for the student instruction. So that's a lot of the driving forces of the budget every year. Insurances. Insurances are basically the health insurance as well as the insurance to insure the district. Just like you have homeowners insurance at home or automobile insurance at home, we have the same thing here that we have to purchase each year. And as you see at home, insurance costs are going up for you as well as health insurance costs. It's the same thing, the same problems you're having at home in regard to cost. School district has the same issues, and we have to deal with that when we're drafting the budget each year. COVID-19 still here in regard to the cleaning supplies, the days off in regard to people being sick from COVID, things along those lines. We're still dealing with that. And employee benefits is just all the costs that are associated with the Social Security, Medicare, TRS, which is Teachers Retirement System, Employee Retirement System, as well as health insurance. Now, we were talking about before, we have all the state and local requirements, but a lot of them are funded or either unfunded. Some of them we receive money from the state, but a lot of them we don't. So there's different things in regard to special education services and placements, the English language learners instruction support that's required, academic instruction services, response to intervention, the Dignity for All Students Act that were required. I was talking about earlier, the auditing services that are required. That basically revolves around the state coming in and having these auditors make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing through the guidelines of the state. As well as we have the safety plan that we have to do, Project SAVE, OSHA compliance, and also one of the main things that has happened over the past couple of years, you'll see in the budgets, we've increased security each year just because of what's been going on recently, and we have just more presence in the district for security. So what is the budget? How is the budget really broken down? There's three components. There's the administrative portion, capital portion, and the program portion. The bulk of the budget is the program portion of it, and then you have the capital and administrative, which we'll discuss a breakdown of what each one is. The first one, the administrative component, that's all the expenses that are necessary for the Board of Education, central office, and the administrators, all the financing for the district, legal services, the BOCES administrative fees, insurances. And when I say insurances, it's the insurances to insure the buildings, the property, and things along those lines. Professional curriculum development, and also the benefits that are associated with all the staff members that are in this area for the administrative portion of the budget. The program portion of the budget, that's basically the instruction. So you see the curriculum and instruction expenses that we have, the teacher salaries, the social workers, psychologists, special education services, curricular activities, also pupil transportation. We do some transportation in the district that comes under this category, as well as, once again, the benefits that are associated with all the staff members that are involved in this section of the budget. The last but not least is the capital component. And the bulk of that, like I said, is the buildings themselves and what it takes to maintain the buildings on a day in, day out basis, between the operation of the plant, the maintenance, the custodial staff, the equipment that's needed to maintain the buildings, to do everything around it. The benefits, once again, it's the benefits that are associated with the staff members that are in this section of the budget. And then the debt service is the bond. In 2015, the district went out for a bond, and we pay for that just as if you had a mortgage on the house. You have the mortgage payments each year. You do a principal payment, and you also do an interest payment. We have another, I think, 10 years, 12 years, close to 12 years. So the 23-24 budget, what's going on? What are the goals? As always, one of the first goals is always to stay tax cap compliant and provide a budget that meets the needs of all the students of the district. We also want to maintain a safe and secure school. We want to continue to strengthen and develop the programs here associated with it. Over the past 5 years, we've really strengthened our technology in this district. 5 years ago, we weren't on a one-to-one initiative. Now we are. We finally made it through the 5-year plan, and every student here has a computer, which is great, and it helps with the education. We want to maintain and enhance the facilities. And that's a key one. It's not just we want to maintain them, because maintain is just getting by. We need to enhance them to make sure we're doing everything possible, that we're not going to have those problems down in the future. So these are things that we have to think about each year when we're doing the budget, year in and year out, not just for this year, but also for future years. And one of the good things here we've had over the past few years is we've gotten revenue from outside sources. Dr. Siniak has been able to get many grants for the district for playgrounds, security, and other things that we've been able to use. And why is that important? Because that's money. Those are things that we needed to do anyway, but we didn't have to ask the taxpayers to fund those things. So that's a great thing that we're able to do. As many grants and things and money that we're able to get from our state legislators, it helps keep the budget down. One of the things we're always talking about is we're here now in, let's say, the last day of January. We're not voting on the budget till May. So there's a lot that can happen. As we were talking about earlier, last year at this time when we started, we had no idea that gas prices were going to go through the roof as quickly as it did. So we don't know. So what are the unknowns that we have right now? It's the same ones. We don't know the final state aid allocations. What happens is tomorrow we're going to finally get our state aid allocations to see what it's going to be. And that's, a percentage of the budget for the revenue for the district. We'll have that tomorrow. That also has an effect on the tax cap because certain aspects of the state aid we receive, including the building aid portion of it, basically tells us how much we're able to raise the tax levy the following year. But we won't know that till tomorrow for the preliminary one. But as you know, that's not the final state budget. It then goes to the House and they figure out later on. We finally figure out, I think, probably usually on Easter break is when we find out the final numbers for the state that we can actually finally put in the budget. So from now to then, even though we'll get numbers tomorrow, those numbers can still go up or can go down. So we don't know that. So that's a big unknown. Validation of the tax cap, like we were talking about before, we're still waiting to see exactly what's going on with the state aid. And there was also rumors that we're hopefully going to find out tomorrow whether or not the pilots are still going to be considered in the tax cap formula. It's a portion of the formula that takes out what we're able to tax up to. When I discuss the tax cap later on tonight, you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's the LIPA pilots. The final student enrollment, we're not going to know the final student enrollment till we step in September next year. But we're going to get more estimates as we get closer and closer. Why is that important? As we stated earlier, it's important because it means whether or not how many sections we're going to have in each grade. Like I said, if the kindergarten class comes in, and it's a low one, you have 1 section, 2 sections. It all depends on the enrollment. So you never really know how many you're going to need until you get those final numbers. Classified student needs, once again, you can have the budget and have it all done today, and you have the total enrollment, and tomorrow a new family walks in the next day, and there's a child with special needs. So then that person isn't in the budget. And that's happened a few times here over the past few years where we've gotten new people in the district in regard to the required special ed needs. So that's one of the unknowns that we never know. We estimate what we believe it's going to be based upon the knowledge that we have by the time we're doing the budget. But once again, it's an unknown. Same thing for English language learners, and also the insurance participation for health insurance. And one of the other important things with that, what we also don't know is, as you know, the budget we're working on right now is for the 23-24 school year. Okay, the health insurance numbers that we know are for the 2023 year. January next year of 2024, we don't know what those premiums are going to be. This past year, they went up 14.9%. So it was a huge increase this past year in regard to it. And the way things are going now, we're not sure what it's going to be the following year. So we have to prepare ourselves for higher increases in those areas. So that's the whole process that we go through. And like I said, we're going to have these meetings. This is the first of 5 meetings that we're going to be having. We're going to have the meeting right before the next board meeting, which is February 13th. Just to mark everyone's calendar. It's not February 14th. It's originally supposed to be that, but it's going to be February 13th. So anyone listening at home, also mark your calendars that February 13th is the next board meeting, and we'll have the next budget meeting before that. Then we'll have and you can look online, you'll have the calendar. We'll go through the calendar at the very end, but there'll be 4 other budget meetings to discuss the whole process, the budget, and what's going on for 23-24 school year. So now the revenue portion of it. I said it'll be very brief in regard to, because we really don't know what's going on right now. So, but what is it? Well, the first thing is the property taxes. That's the major portion of the revenue for the district. We're not going to know that till we can finalize the tax cap. Hopefully, the tax cap is supposed to be certified March 1st. So we have some time. Hopefully tomorrow, when we get the better numbers from the state, they'll tell us what they are, and we'll figure out exactly what that's supposed to be. The LIPA, yes. We don't know the exact number yet. You're going to see an estimate later, but right now we won't know. We've had registration for kindergarten already. We've had kindergarten, but what happens every year, we'll have registration, but you'll still get a bunch of people that move into the district over the summer. You know, that happens a lot of time. People move during the summer. They finish in one school district in June, and then in the summer they move and they come here. So we look at what we anticipate having. We look at past histories. So now the next area is the pilots, which is the LIPA pilots that we have. And like I discussed, I'm hoping to hear good news tomorrow when we see the governor's proposal that possibly the pilots will be taken out and won't be considered as part of the tax cap, which will help us in the future. The next thing is state aid. Once again, we don't know exactly what that's going to be, but we'll have an idea obviously tomorrow when that comes. The other revenue is like tuition of students that come into the district, any interest that we receive on our money that we have in our checking savings accounts. Also in regard to any E-rate money we receive, any donations we receive, things along those lines. And we also have health and services that we receive money from other districts that send their students to schools like Progressive in the area. We receive money from that, and that's all calculated. And we'll see that when we go through the whole process and we do the whole revenue during the process, you'll see line by line exactly what all that is. And then each year, what reserves and fund balance we're using to help subsidize us, to help fund the budget. Each year, we use the employer retirement system to help fund the expenses for that. So usually that's the dollar for dollar one that I keep saying every year, that the expense for employee retirement system that we have, we fund that dollar for dollar from the reserve itself. We also use the unemployment reserve, which has been good for the past couple of years. We haven't had many unemployment claims because we haven't had many of those situations. So that's always good. That'll be limited in each year, but that's another dollar for dollar. Whatever we spend out of that, we get it funded through the reserve. And then the appropriate fund balance, that's the money that we wind up giving back each year that help fund the budget from the prior year. So the tax cap maximum increase we were discussing. Now this is all preliminary right now because we're still waiting for the additional information. So now what happens is you take the levy from the current year, which was $24,859,000. You times it by the tax growth factor. Now the interesting thing about this, up until I think it was Friday, this number was zero for everybody. From I'd say more than 75% of the districts, it was 0% increase for that. But we were able to discuss it with the state and the Nassau County's Assessor's Office to make the corrections to it that was able to get it up to a 0.6 increase. So what does that mean? You times that by the levy from last year, and that brings you to $25,706,600. You then take the pilots from last year, add it in, take out the capital levy exemptions, and then you have $24,875,980. What then happens is that you times it by the CPI. Now, you keep hearing every year with in regard to the tax levy, 2%, 2%, 2%. This is where the 2% lives. They keep talking about the 2%. And what that means is when you get to this number right here, the adjusted prior year levy, when you get to that number, the most that can ever be times by is 2%. So CPI this past year was over 7 in a lot of areas, 8%. Even though everything else increased 7, 8, 9, 10%, we're only allowed to go up 2% here. Now, there was also years when it says 2%, that's the maximum it can be. We've had other years where this has been well under 2%. So it goes up the full 2%, which brings us to 25, 373, 499. We then subtract out the pilots that we're anticipating for the coming year, which is 275. And that brings us to the tax levy limit of 25,970,000. The last aspect of it is that you add in any exemptions that you have. And I'll go through the exemptions on the next page, but those exemptions wind up being 439. So right now we're looking at a levy to levy increase of about 2.7 as the maximum. So what were the exclusions we were talking about before? Well, you have the capital exclusion you first start with the bond payments that we're paying each year. So like we said before, just like your mortgage, you have the principal, the interest. We have the same thing with our bond payments. So that's the first 2 lines. We have the transfer to capital, which we'll be discussing during the capital portion of the budget, all the different capital projects we're anticipating doing in the next year that will get done for the district. And then right now, the BOCES capital payment. We don't know that number right now. We'll find that out hopefully tomorrow. That's why there's an asterisk right there, because the state will wind up telling us what BOCES payment for that is. So then you have all those expenses as the add. You subtract out now all the aid that you're receiving in regard to this. So we subtract out our building aid, which we anticipate is going to be in the $1,058,000 range. But once again, tomorrow we'll have a better idea of exactly what that's going to be. Same thing with the BOCES building aid. So that's how we came up with the 439, 476 number. But like, once again, this is all estimates because we'll get the state aid numbers tomorrow. Typically, we're starting a little bit early this year. Typically, the first meeting is in February. So we've already received all the numbers, but this year we wanted to have one more meeting just to get the preliminary stuff out of the way and to discuss certain things in regard to the budget. So what does that all mean? So when we're talking about before, we're looking at the maximum levy amount of $25,537,247, which is a corresponding dollar increase of $678,798, which is a 2.73 tax cap maximum that the district would be allowed to go out to. So that's the brief aspect for the revenue, because like I said before, we don't know the state aid numbers, so that's going to add to everything to find out the final dollar numbers. So the next time we have a meeting, we'll have a better understanding of that. As I was stuttering around before, we were discussing the budget development calendar. Here's actually the full days that we were talking about. So like I said, right now we're here Tuesday, the 31st. That's today. That's our first one. Okay. So then on Tuesday, February 7th, we're going to have a follow-up meeting in the boardroom that's going to be discussing everything that was discussed here tonight, the presentation, as well as the handout that I'm going to give out in a little bit in regard to the expenses over the past few years. So anyone that's not able to make the budget meeting will be able to come to the board meeting, the boardroom on February 7th at 1:30 p.m. just to go through everything, just so everyone can be heard. Then the next meeting, like I said, is going to be the February 13th, not the February 14th. So, and that one, we're going to discuss the capital and administrative portions of the budget. So that's when you're going to find out about the transfer to capital, what we're planning on doing, what we're looking at. Then we'll have the board meeting. Then after that, the next thing, we're going to have that follow-up meeting once again on the 28th in the boardroom to discuss everything that was discussed at the February 13th meeting for people that weren't able to do that. And if any other questions come up in the interim from that meeting to the next, I'm always around to answer those questions. So that's February 28th. As I was saying earlier, March 1st is the deadline for us to file the tax cap. So that's when we'll know the exact tax cap maximum that the district will be allowed to go out with. And then the 14th of March, we'll have our 5th budget advisory meeting, and that's the program portion of it. That's going to be the instruction. That's going to be the staffing in regard to all that stuff. So that's always a fun one. They're all fun for me, but that one's always fun too. And then we have the board meeting afterwards. And then once again, we'll have the 6th and final budget meeting, which will be the same thing again in the boardroom for all the people that couldn't come to the program one, or if any questions come up in the interim from the previous meeting. 6 meetings. Well, in the sense of you have the first one, like you have this one today. The next one's similar to this. Yes and no, because different questions come up at that. So, no, you don't have to come to that. No. Correct. Yeah. Correct. Right. And that was something that came up a couple of years ago that a lot of people can't make it at night. And that was also before they were being streamed too. That was all before that. So like you said, maybe not as much is going to be discussed at that one. So maybe in the future, we will go back down to 3 meetings if everyone's involved now through the streaming. So that's where we're at for that. So that's the whole process itself. Now, the one last important thing to remember in regard to the process is that it's continuing. It's always evolving. We're not even near where we're supposed to be right now for the budget. We're going to still have our meetings in regard to figuring out what's going to be in each and every one of the codes. Correct. That's better put. Yeah. Right. The way it was meant to say is that we're not going to sit here tonight and say, okay, this is exactly what's going to be in the budget right now. We're not there yet. But this is still very early in the process. It's once again, the earliest meeting we've ever had. So, and that's where we're at for that. The next thing we're going to open up, I'm going to give a handout. And one of the things that was discussed at the board meetings is people wanted to see like the expenses of everything that have been done over the past few years for the budget. So I'm just going to just pass them around. What I'm handing out is the past 2 years of expenses in the current budget. So you can see what has been spent over the past few years in each of the lines. And then what the current budget is for this current school year. And you'll see that the last column is actually blank. And the reason why that's going to be blank is because, 3 months from now, you'll get the same sheet. Everyone will have the same sheet, and all the numbers will be put into it for the 23-24 budget. Now, at this time, if anyone has questions or anything, you can stop me at any time because I'm going to continue to talk if you don't have questions. Yes. Pilots is payment in lieu of taxes. And what that is, LIPA. They don't pay taxes for the district. What happens is there was an agreement years ago for pilots that allows them to come here and that instead of paying that, they pay a certain pilot. They call it a pilot. It's their portion of the taxes each year. And that goes up every year. And it depends on their assessments also, just like the homes and things along those lines. But it's a separate agreement in regard to what they have with the county. So you'll see, and just a brief, and please stop me at any time because I'll continue to go. You know that. The way it's broken down, and it's simple. If you look at the first set of numbers, you're going to see the 1000s. You'll see a whole bunch of 1000s, 1010, 1240, 310, anything that starts with a 1. That's basically the general support of the district. And what does that mean? Well, for example, the 1010 is the Board of Education expenses. 1040, 1060s is the district meetings expenses. The 1240s is the superintendent's, and the 1310s is the business office. 1320s is the auditing. The 1400s is personnel and legal services. So those are designated. So when we talk about different things, if someone wants to say, hey, what's in the business office? What expenses do you have in the business office next year? Well, I know, okay, go to wherever it starts at 13 and work from there. So 1310 and all those numbers. The 2000s is all instruction. You know, from curriculum and development to teachers to programs to attendance to guidance, health services, special education services, psychological services, co-curricular services, library services, Anything to do with the education aspect of it is in the 2000s. The 5000s you'll see is transportation. That's all the costs that are associated with the transportation of the district. Then the 9000s are broken down into the benefits, and the benefits you'll see is health insurance, workers' compensation insurance, Social Security, all those insurances of that aspect. And then you'll also see later on the 9700s is all the debt service. That's where you'll see the bond principal and the bond interest, which is broken down. We have to break down for the state each year how much we're paying towards the principal and how much we're paying towards the interest. You'll also see any other debt service that the district has, as well as the transfers to the special aid fund. What that basically is for our summer programs, we're responsible for a certain portion of the payment. The other part of it is paid through the state. So that's what we transfer to the special ed fund to basically cover the summer special education costs. And then the last thing is the transfer to capital that we were discussing earlier. And that's in regard to the upkeep projects that we're planning on doing for the 23-24 school year. Now, if you go to the middle number, that breaks it down a little bit more. So now the first four numbers, that has all the different sections. I know this is a lot. There's not going to be a test today, I promise. But if you come to the afternoon one, there may be a test. So the middle one is the codes of, so if you go anything that's 100, so from 100 to 199 in the middle, those are salary codes, okay? The 200 codes is any equipment that the district purchases. And equipment is classified as anything that the district purchases that's over $1,000. 400s, from 400 to 489 is basically all the contract services and supplies that the district needs to purchase. Contract services is any type of contract the district has to enter into any one of those areas, whether it's for consultants, and things along those lines. The 450s would be any of the supplies that are necessary for the education of the students as well as for the different departments. From 490 to 499, you'll see that's BOCES. That's anything that has those middle numbers from 490 to 499 is the BOCES expenses of the district. And once, again, we've discussed it so many times at board meetings, it's so important to utilize BOCES, especially as a district like us, because we get back over 70%. So say if we spend $100,000, we're going to get 70 back. So that $100,000 that even though we spent it this year, it actually only cost us $30,000. So that's why it's very important for us to try to utilize that as much as possible. Yes, Ms. Miskitz. Great. We'll get that money the following school year. So the budget, correct. So like I said, that's one of the things we try to utilize BOCES as much as possible for that reason.
Next year when we get it in September or October, based on our BOCES expenses this year, and when you multiply that by the 70% aid that we get back, and then you deduct the service fee, we have a ballpark figure of what that revenue will be the following year.
Correct. And then the 600s is the debt service in regard to principal payments, and the 700s is the debt service in regard to the interest on the debt service. The last one is the 900s. That's just the interfund transfers that we were discussing earlier in regard to special ed and capital. So that's the whole aspect for the middle number. The last number that you'll see basically breaks it down by school district. So when you look at and you see an 01 number, that's everything associated with Camp Avenue School. And if you look at 02, that's the Fayette School. And 3, obviously, is what's remaining Old Mill. So that's how it's broken down. The 4 number is expenses that the district has district-wide. It's not associated just to one building. It's district-wide. Now, most of the expenses are broken down by building each year. So that's why we have to designate that way. And then you have a few other ones, 5, 6, which are basically like some of the parochial schools that we send out and a couple other things along those lines. The unique thing that you'll see on some of them is you'll see a last one. There will be a 4th column. You don't see it that often, but you'll see it a lot on the BOCES codes, and that's more for an internal thing, so we know exactly what coaster we're using for the BOCES for that. So it's easier for the district to have it to see where it is each year. And that's the whole explanation in regard to how the different accounts are. So that being said, I have nothing else actually to say in regard to any of that. So I'm glad to take questions. Health insurance is the last page. Last page. So like I said before, anything benefits associated, start with the number 9. The first column number, a 9 will be there. So look for those. So that's always at the end. So you'll see that the teachers retirement systems is 930, workers comp 940, unemployment 950, dental 960, health insurance is also 960, but it's 801 and 800. When you're looking at it, what I gave out today, no, but yes. The safe thing is anything that's 2,000 is the program portion of it. So anything that's 2,000 and 5,000, that's all program. Okay, with the exception of the 220s and the 2020s, 2030s, and 2010s. Those are administrative from that, but everything else associated in there is basically a program portion of it. And as for the administrative portion. So now, if you want to also see what else is administrative, the administrative is basically the 1,000s all the way down to 1430, the personnel office. Because then you have the operation of plant, which is 1620 and 1621. Those two are the capital codes. So the bulk of the capital come in those two codes, as well as the debt service in the 9,000s. And once again, we were discussing earlier, the benefits that are associated with each of those units. So if you look at all the 9,000s for the health insurance, the Social Security, the ERS, the TRS, that is one line. That's the total amount for the district that you see right now, but that's actually broken down by components later on at the very end. You got that right here. Dental health. Yes, go ahead. Sure. Yes. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
People who are benefiting from those programs that would have been nice to have even before COVID, right? Have them so that when they're gone. So what we have to do strategically is, although we're planning the 2023-24 budget, we're actually planning 2 years beyond that. So what do we need to keep? How will we be able to keep that? So it might come down to weaning students off of AIS that may not have had it if COVID didn't exist. Tracking our students through progress monitoring and be able to predict where they will be in the future. As for the summer lunch fund, you know, I'm always actively looking for grants from our local legislators. We're getting brand new playground at Oakville, which is underway. We have the front playground and the swings. Next is Fayette, and then we're now searching for funding for Camp Avenue. So those will be the things that I turn my attention to when I'm speaking to the local legislators as to how can we maintain what we already have, that the funding that we have now will no longer be in existence. You have to be very strategic. So it's not just a single year budget, it's a 3 to 5 year budget.
Correct.
And being able to sustain those things without piercing the cap or adding to it or having to take away an excess or an et cetera, things like that. Our teacher center is a huge part of our professional development that we do here. We thank the teacher sector because they provide funding. And I know Ms. Sarah works very closely with Ms. Cadiz on what are the priorities for professional development in our district. How can we support that for the district? So that's another resource for us. So it's all these little pieces that hopefully we can continue to sustain. I'm glad that you're it's also you and I talked about the science changes that are coming out this week as well. So
Yeah.
there's so much that hopefully they haven't stopped. They haven't stopped what they're putting on us academically, which we're already taught. We have a new science series. Ms. Cadiz is working closely with the principals and the teachers on the investigation. She's actually doing a PD session tomorrow morning and demonstrating one of the investigations for the principals, for the staff. We're looking at, we already had, Ms. Cadiz had an articulation meeting with the Central High School District so that our 6th grade teachers are prepared for what the students need to know when they go to MAMS. So all those things internally support all of those things coming down from the state education department. The computer standards, I know Ms. Talbot's working closely on what are the outcomes for our students in the classroom when it comes to technology and what will assist them most for success at the secondary level. What's our job to prepare them for? What do they need to know when they exit us at 6th grade? Those articulation meetings are things that we do internally to ensure that our students are ready to be successful at NAMS.
There you go. And what you'll also see when we go through the whole budget process each year, when we do have certain increases in codes, we'll actually break down and tell you exactly, okay, why is it increasing? And a lot of times it will be because it's an unfunded mandate. But just to piggyback that a little bit, we also have a lot of different ordering ones that have come up over the past few years. Like as we discussed at the board meetings, we just had the single order for the first time because we reached a certain limit for that. That's an additional expense that we never had before. We also have this thing called the transparency report that we do each year. Now, that doesn't cost the district anything, but it's just a very time-consuming thing that the district has to do. And it basically breaks down all the different expenses and all the different codes for all the different buildings and certain formulas for the state. And that comes out actually in the next couple of weeks, actually, from the state. So it's certain reporting requirements that we were also required to do that was also time-consuming, not just money.
In addition to that, we're rolling out computer-based testing.
Mhm.
Because eventually all of our state assessments will be on the computer. This year, we're doing grade 4 and grade 6 because next year, the science assessment in grade 5 will be computer-based. So we want
ELA and science.
Right. We want to expose those students first and foremost. And our 6th graders, we want to prepare for when they're advanced for computer-based testing. So strategically, you need to plan 1, 2, 3 years ahead.
Mhm.
And so we just had the simulation last week.
Very well.
For more than 6th graders, they got to practice on a computer-based test. So, and we also have to make sure that our technology can support all of these grades working on a computer at the same time. And I think they call that
Yeah. Yeah. Infrastructure. Mhm. Okay, thank you. Any other questions in regard to anything that was discussed tonight or anything you're reviewing at this time? Yeah. 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 The building. Right. Right. Like I said, we've been lucky the past couple of years with that, which is good.
So those are the expended years, the zeros,
Mhm.
and then there's money in there.
All right. Yes. What happens is, I'm not sure which one you're looking at, but it can be retirements. It could be people moving from different codes, things along those lines. Because the salaries for that, that's all the teaching salaries. That's not just the teachers. That's also the aides, the monitors. That's that whole unit aspect of it. And then some of it also over the past couple of years have been able to been using the American Rescue Plan money. So that's been able to lower it also. Mhm. Mhm. A few. Mhm. Mhm. All right. Any other questions? Yes, the numbers that we were discussing earlier for the different aspects, they're exactly the same in all districts. There's some districts that have maybe the last four numbers a little bit different, but universal, the 1000s are all, the general support, the 2000s are all. So, because what happens is these are also ST3 numbers. It's broken down to ST3 numbers, and ST3 is one of the state reporting requirements that's unfunded that we have to do each year. That is the universal numbers for everybody. So let's just say hypothetically, let's just take one here. I don't have my glasses on, so I apologize. I always go back to the 1310s, which is the business office. The 1310s. So for the ST3, they'll have a number of 1310 100, which will be all the salaries. So it'll all be there for that universal. For now the 400s, they'll have all the 400s together in regard to any of the auditing or for the accountants, things along those lines. So that's the universal numbers. So while maybe the middle numbers, like where we have something that's a 401, another district may have that as a 1411. But when it gets down to the ST3 number, it's 1310, 400, and it's all the same universally. Well, the state tells us where everything's supposed to be. And the way we do it here, I can't speak for any other district. We do it whatever the state tells us it's supposed to be. We're very good at following directions. All righty. Well, once again, I want to thank everyone for coming. I appreciate also, once again, for the budget committee members, thank you for taking part in this. You know, it's great that you're coming out for this. Anytime before the next meeting, you guys all have ladies have my email address. You can email me with any questions or even call if you have anything comes up. Because I know sometimes we discuss a lot here tonight that you're like, oh, I should have asked this. Never feel afraid just to give a call or give it an email.
Especially when we break it down to the three different components and get to the minutia of what falls into those different parts.